Okay, for some reason, when I go full screen, some graphics are missing. So I'm just gonna leave it like this and go with the presentation. To begin with, I just want to recap a few things from the previous talk with Morva. She mentioned around decentralization is not an easy concept for everyone to understand. It's all about regulations. There's always going to be a mix of centralization and decentralization required. I couldn't agree more with her. And one thing she mentioned, like she mentioned, a lot of like people are working with regulators to define these requirements, how we are going to be able to scale these Web3 offerings to mass audience. She literally described the work of an entire department at BitBuy and similar companies, with BitBuy slash WonderFi and similar other companies as well. Like pretty much every major player has an entire department that is dedicated towards working with regulators, defining these requirements, figuring out the regulations, how we can safely and securely roll out these different crypto offerings to mass audiences. With that in mind, today I'll be talking about staking for everyone. Uh, just few disclosures. Uh, this talk is not to bring up the debate between centralization versus decentralization. I tried to keep the talk as neutral as possible, so hopefully it would be an interesting talk. Uh, so quickly, just to go over what staking is, and then we'll deep dive into how it differs from mining, how you can stake, what different blockchains offer staking, what are the benefits, drawbacks, risks, and if there are any regulated offerings that you can take part in as part of staking. So think of it staking. So staking is a new alternative to mining, where pretty much anyone who takes part in staking is kind of putting their money on the line in validating a transaction, saying that, yes, this is a correct transaction, and here's my money that I'm willing to bet on it. And what happens is, once the transaction has been accepted by the network, after a certain time, you get your money back. Plus, you also get a reward for putting your money on the line in assuring the network that this transaction is a legit transaction. So that's a very high level summary of how staking and proof of stake works, where you're putting your money on the line, assuming everything goes well. After a while, you get back your money, plus you get back some rewards. When I say money, I'm talking about crypto in this case. Staking, if we compare staking to mining, in case of mining, what used to happen, which started with Bitcoin, every time like somebody wants to prove that this transaction is correct, they would solve a complex mathematical algorithm, mathematical problem, grouping bunch of transactions into a single block. That has proven to be a pretty secure way of preventing someone from modifying historical transaction and be able to agree on like have consensus among different participants in the network to agree on transactions. However, when it came to mining, because you have to solve complex mathematical problems, it turned into a race of who can solve it faster, who can solve it quicker. That led to new like computing algorithms coming in place, big mining warehouses and data centers being set up, lots of energy being consumed. That is leading to its own issues like excess use of electricity that has environmental impacts as well. So to overcome those impacts, to overcome the issues that we run with proof of work, proof of stake was invented, where proof of stake is basically staking your own money to assure the network that things are working as expected and then getting rewarded for it. What it allowed different networks to do is, with mining, you were limited to solving complex problems, and that requires time, which means that the network itself has a bandwidth of how many transactions it can process every second, because you got to solve the complex problems, and it's always a race for solving those. When it came to staking, you don't need to solve those complex problems. You're just putting your crypto as a guarantee for a transaction, which allows you to process a lot more transactions. We're talking about tens of thousands of folds transactions compared to traditional mining based blockchains. And obviously, you are saving a lot more energy when it comes to staking versus mining. Last but not the least, when it comes to mining, as a miner, you're investing into building big warehouses, infrastructure that you need to stay ahead of other miners to be able to get your reward. Whereas when it comes to staking, you don't need to make that much of an investment upfront. You can start with smaller staking amounts, you can stake less money. Obviously, in that case, the reward that you receive is much lesser. The more money you stake, the more rewards you can earn through the entire process, but at least it reduces the risks for new and upcoming participants in the network. So it reduces the risk quite a lot in terms of that. So if we quickly compare the staking requirements overall compared to mining, there's always a minimum amount that you need to stake to be considered a valid validator, but you don't need to invest into heavy compute. You still need your validators to be always online compared to in mining where you need to them to be running as well. But in case of mining, when you have a data center running, you have a lot more uh, maintenance to do, whereas staking you could be running from your laptop. So the hardware requirements are much lesser. When it comes to staking, there's one more requirement that kicks in, which is called the bonding and unbonding period. I'll cover more in detail, but basically, what's happening in all of these networks is you come online today, you say, hey, I want to stake my crypto and be part of the validator network. Pretty much all the blockchains, for safety reasons and for preventing you or like someone just coming in and being the majority stakeholder taking over the network, they ask you to wait for a couple of blocks. It can be almost instant to couple of days depending on the blockchain. In case of Ethereum, it can stretch up to 45 days as well, where you commit to putting your money towards staking, but you don't start staking for up to 45 days in case of Ethereum. And secondly, when you decide that, okay, I'm not gonna stake anymore, let's say the last transaction that you staked your crypto on was today, it's going to take a couple blocks, some in some transactions up to a couple of days for the network to agree that those transactions are correct. So when you decide to unstake, your assets are like blocked in an unbonding period where if something goes wrong, you do get penalized for sending a wrong transaction. But if nothing goes wrong, then your crypto becomes available once the unbonding period is there. I'm covering all of these requirements because if you as an individual user want to stake, these are the bare minimum things that you should know. Uh, don't expect every average individual to know all of these things. Given that everyone has their own dedicated jobs to do, this requires a lot more technical know-how. But just covering like high level topics here, when we look at the different blockchains, there are multiple blockchains that work on proof of stake. Ethereum was one of the ones that started as proof of work. Later, when they realized the advantages of staking, they switched to proof of stake. Solana, Near, ADA, Matic, and there are a lot more blockchains that purely work on the concept of staking instead of proof of work. In this next section, I'm going to cover a couple of key terms that explain how Ethereum staking works, what it is. Like, uh, if we talk about like people who are involved in crypto, the two most common blockchains, cryptocurrencies that they would be holding are Bitcoin and Ethereum. And like holding BTC ETH has reached quite a lot of mass adoption, but when it comes to staking Ethereum, that's whole another ballpark. A lot of new terms that kick in, not easy for every uh, average crypto investor to understand. So quickly going over those. First of all, the way Ethereum staking works, uh, along with the Ethereum chain, uh, the network runs a parallel beacon chain. So what happens with the beacon chain is the one that's actually responsible for validating the transactions on the Ethereum chain. So when you decide that you want to stake, there is a smart contract that's deployed on the main chain, mainnet. You deposit your funds on the mainnet. You get like those funds become available on the beacon chain, and then you bring up your validator from the same wallet. So you go through bonding, unbonding, and then whenever you are done staking, once you withdraw the funds from beacon chain, they later become available on the Ethereum chain. And one of the along with the tip along the whole process, you're earning staking rewards, and you're also earning tips. I'll cover tips a little bit later once we go into how like staking rewards work in the next few slides. But to summarize, you have your funds on Ethereum chain, you deposit them in a smart contract, they're made available on the beacon chain. You then run a validator. You can run a validator pretty much from your laptop as well, or from any standard like server provider. And then you go through the bonding periods, you earn rewards. Whenever you're done, you go through unbonding period, then you withdraw your funds become available on the main chain again. So now, just to if we compare Ethereum staking versus all the other stakings that we cover here, pretty much every chain has their own unique requirements. So if an average individual who wants to like take participate in staking in different blockchains, they need to understand similar concepts in each chain. They need to do research. Okay, what are the bonding times, unbonding times, how much is the penalty, what's the withdrawal process, how do I start a validator, a lot of things pretty much that you need to understand per blockchain. So, and one of the main topics that I wanted to cover out of that was the P&L, profit and loss calculations. Think about this way: when you are staking your assets have a monetary value given the current market. You start staking today, if your assets are worth $100, within a week, they depending on how the market is fluctuating, they could be valued at $80 or they could be valued at $120 as well, or more or less. During the entire time you're staking, you're earning rewards. So what was the value of rewards when you earned? What's the taxable event when tax like depending on the time of the transaction, when you stake, unstake, when you earn rewards, there are different times when a taxable event is triggered where you need to report taxes. And also you need to figure out how and when to claim rewards. Like, do you owe taxes when you, and these are all open questions. There's no right answer given how the ecosystem is. We are too early in the ecosystem. Depending on different blockchains, these things differ as well. uh, where I'm trying to get to is, if you are staking as an individual, you need to maintain infrastructure. Blockchains have minimum thresholds that you need to stake. When we talk about Ethereum, if you want to be a validator, every validator needs to stake 32 Ethereum, which roughly translates to 50 grand, if I'm not wrong, at the current moment. And they are trying to increase that to 64 ETH at the moment, which means that staking as an individual is not a scalable option. You have to pool your funds together with some different providers to be able to stake in a reasonable manner. That leads to two options for every individual. They could either be part of the decentralized staking pools, or they could be using centralized staking. So, to quickly summarize what decentralized staking pools are, uh, so like the three major players in this case, Rocket Pool, Stakewise, and Lido, they have come up with the infrastructure where you will deposit your funds in their smart contract. They issue you a corresponding token that showcases what is your share in their current validator, and then they will pool the funds. They run a validator. You don't need to run a validator. You don't need to worry about understanding the complex differences between different chains. And then they will take care of the staking for you. And then they will, once the rewards are issued, they will take their portion of the fees and then issue the rewards back to you. Pretty visible process. You can track every transaction that's happening on the network. But when it comes to smart contracts are always prone to attacks. Any smart contract that has funds living on it is a very like lucrative target for hackers to figure out how they can get those funds out. You still need to have somewhat technical know-how to be able to interact with these pools. So yes, if you hold crypto, you can start using decentralized staking pools if that's what you believe in. But again, you still need to understand a little bit of technical know-how, when to trigger rewards, when you get paid. You still need to understand the differences of each blockchain. And the last point that I do want to emphasize on, while decentralization allows you to have a lot more visibility, uh, at present, I'm not aware of any insured decentralized staking pools. So, uh, while it is safe, it's still uninsured, which means if smart contracts get hacked, you lose your private key, you always run at the risk of losing access to your funds. So, it's great power that comes with decentralized staking, but also comes the great responsibility. So, which is where the next option comes in is the centralized staking. There are a couple of different providers in the Canadian market, obviously BitBuy being one of them. I kept the bigger logo because that's the one that we built, and that's the one that I'm going to demo as well. When it comes to centralized staking, uh, if we think about uh, like if I talk about my parents, they don't really understand what crypto is, but they understand how banks work. Not everyone who is invested in crypto is ever going to understand how entire crypto works. So I believe there is a strong space for the centralized services to be able to for masses to adopt staking. And when it comes to centralized services, behind the scenes they are using similar tech as the decentralized staking pools, but because they are centralized, they're able to like figure out how like get insurance on their assets. They are regulated. Pretty much all the crypto exchanges that offer staking are working with regulators at the moment to define what's the process to like stake, unstake, what processes they need to put in place, and process and procedures they need to place within their company that allows them to comfortably work with regulators. What happens if there's a hack or something else happens? It's a lot more simplified process. Pretty much when you're doing centralized staking, you are letting a third party do all the complex algorithms, complex research for you, and they take care of all the infrastructure. Take care of differences among blockchains. They take care of providing you simplified reporting on profit and loss that allows you to do your taxes accordingly. Obviously, there are risks that get introduced with centralization. If there's a bad actor in this space, just like Morby was mentioning, uh, FTX, not for staking, but they were really bad actors in terms of a crypto exchange. It could happen anywhere when you're going centralized. So there are risks. Um, so it's totally dependent on you as an investor. If you're looking into staking, which is the right choice for you? Are you comfortable taking all the responsibility that comes with decentralized staking pools, versus are you comfortable delegating this responsibility to a third party? Obviously, do your research in terms of which ones are regulated or not. A lot of crypto exchanges that are leaving Canada, they're leaving because of the stricter regulations that they have to work with otherwise. And that actually opens up a lot of opportunity for native Canadian crypto exchanges to be able to offer interesting products to their users that can be mass adopted. That being said, I'll quickly go over how staking works at WonderFi. I know I might be running out of time, but quickly I'll try to cover that. So when we wanted to offer staking, uh, I will use Ethereum as an example. With Ethereum, you require 32 blocks, 32 ETH to stake, whereas an average investor on our app is not going to be able to take participate if everyone has to stake 32 ETH. So we wanted to make it accessible for everyone to be able to stake as minimum as zero point 0.1 ETH, let's say. So the technology that we have built, I use the term Lego blocks when we were building. So think about one Lego block as a block of 32 ETH. We when we start staking, when we started offering staking, we will go and stake one Lego block. In this case, we are already processing the bonding period on chain. Users can stake much smaller amounts. We already have the Lego block on chain. As users are asking us to stake on their behalf, we assign them equivalent portions of this amount that we already have staked. Whenever we are reaching close to completing that Lego block, we stake another Lego block. When the rewards come in, we do all the calculations, we figure out P&L, and like as a user, you are able to see, okay, how much you staked, what portion of, like how much rewards you earned based on the portion that is fully staked versus your portion. So pretty much we are able to simplify it to as simple as, from a user's point of view, you stake whatever you want to stake, we'll take care of all the complications. Pretty much another centralized exchanges do similar processes as well, but obviously I won't know a lot more details there. Last but not the least, I'll quickly give you guys a demo of taking at BitBuy and how easy it is to get started. So if we go here, I have an account, I have some crypto in it, the Canadian dollar as well. So I'm gonna start by, as simple as, I'm gonna go for just a second. I think I logged out. Yeah. Okay. So now if I go to Ethereum, I'm going to start from buying crypto and then I'm going to stake crypto. So if I want to buy, I'm going to buy $100 worth of crypto. So once I've bought, I'm just going to go to stake. I'm going to figure out how much I want to stake. I have 0.9 ETH, but I only want to stake 0.1 ETH, let's say. As simple as this, we are in the staking period. So what's going to happen is I have 5-minute window to cancel, change my mind. But once uh, I have decided, like the cancellation window has passed, I will be going through bonding period. And if you see, these are the different transactions that I've been testing over time with smaller amounts. We can stake as small as 0.00001 ETH. So depending on how you're staking, when you staked, all your amount is going through bonding, which means that this one, within next 1 hour, you're going to be able to start earning rewards. The network has accepted that transaction. So that's pretty much it for the demo.